We finally got the motor out, Mark 8. Pull this sucker out. We had a little bit of an issue here. The motor mounts were catching on the headers, but we were able to pull the motor forward, get it past the headers, get it up in this area, and we were able to jack it up, no problem. This coming Sunday, I'm going to come back here. We're going to start pulling the motor apart and possibly get the new heads on Sunday and go from there. And I'll show you guys all the parts that I'm going to be putting on this motor once we get to that point. Alright, we got our motor. It's already set up, ready to go. We're about to start pulling the valve covers off. We're going to get the IMRC plates off, get the timing cover off, and then tear off the heads. Starting off, we have all of our parts set up over here to start putting the motor together. So right here, we have our 0304 Mach 1 intake manifold, but I had it modified to be a short runner intake manifold. It also has this spacer here to help with airflow. Since it is a short runner intake manifold, I believe it helps with easier airflow to go from that 90-degree angle right there. Throttle body is poured and polished. Same with the runners on the intake manifold. The guy had that done. Moving on, we have our comp cams right here. On the intake valve, it is 475 lift and 234 duration, and on the exhaust valve it's 450 lift and 232 duration. Moving on, we got our 99 to 01 Cobra heads. They are the 4-thread heads, so they're not as reliable as the 9-thread heads, but that's okay. These were a lot cheaper and more in my budget. Everything on these heads is new, other than the valves themselves, but everything has been cleaned. Heads were decked. These things are perfect, ready to go, and all I have to do is put the cams in with some assembly lube and torque everything down, and they're ready to go on. Moving on, we got our exhaust cutouts that I'll be putting on at some point. 3-inch exhaust cutouts. The guy that I bought these from are really nice people. I'm gonna shout them out here. Badlands cutouts, and we'll see how these sound once I put them on. Moving on, we got our Ford Performance timing chain set. They are just a little bit better than the factory stuff, which is what I wanted since I'm going to be running about 7,500 RPM. And to further help with making this more reliable is I bought this MMR single piece crankshaft timing gear. So from what I've heard, if you stick with the factory 2-piece setup, the little notch in here likes to break, and there goes your timing, and then there goes your motor. So just a little reliable piece right here that was definitely worth the money. And in doing so, you have to get this aftermarket reluctor wheel that goes with this timing gear. It is a little bit different than factory, so it's definitely a must. Moving on, we got our head studs here. We also have our cam bolts here, because the factory ones will not work. You have to get ARP cam bolts. Moving on, got our oil pan gasket. We have our aftermarket Canton 7-quart oil pan. And then for the final piece, we have our MMR crank brace or rear main seal that I figured I'd spend the money on. The only thing that you guys don't see here is the rest of the fuel system. I don't have the injectors here, but I do have 42-pound injectors that I need to get rebuilt. And then I also have the fuel pressure regulator and the AN fittings, the AN lines, the rest of that stuff. So right now, we're going to get moving on getting this motor torn apart, and you guys will see that in a second. Got the block all torn down to its bare bones. All that's left on it is the water pump and a few other stragglers. But I forgot to buy a gasket scraper, so kind of at a standstill now. But everything's ready to go. All the old stuff's over there. And next weekend, come back out and get the gasket scraper and start putting the heads on, getting the whole motor together. So since I didn't film you guys an outro for the Mark 8 video, I figured I'd show you guys the daily. Something that I drive every day, and hopefully you guys like it.